Come.
All right, so welcome to the group study of Practical Occultism by HPB. We'll begin with 2 minutes of silence and then get started.
Sorry.
All right, and because we have some new people, it might be good to go over this kind of overview of the book here. It's just HPB saying what occultism isn't. Mostly, it's not magic or these powers or anything like that. That oftentimes it's associated with. It's the science and art of living, trying to live in the most beautiful way that we can, essentially. That's what she says in the beginning of the book. And then this 19 here is kind of the prefix to all these rules that HPB gave for people who live in the East to practice occultism without falling into black magic. So that's why these following slides here have Eastern rules to prevent danger of black magic here. And this 9th rule is where we left off last time. So I'll read this one, and then if anyone wants to read more in the future, they can. 9. The mind must remain blunt to all but the universal truths in nature, lest the doctrine of the heart should become only the doctrine of the eye, which means empty esoteric ritualism. And then normally we've been pausing for a second to reflect, and then we'll speak anything that comes to our mind.
So we share our thoughts.
We share our
Okay.
thoughts, yeah.
Yeah, I think yeah, we should. This means we should look for what is real. No, we should discern what is real from what is not real. So we should start to perceive the truth and to be aware of what is the greater good and act accordingly.
Can you go back to slide?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I agree. I think it's interesting that she says I'm sorry, was anyone talking?
No.
No, okay. Yeah, I was saying I think it's interesting that she says we should look for the universal truths in nature, even though there may be more particular truths, but they can lead to the doctrine of the eye or something that's exoteric. Which reminds me a little bit of maybe science, because science is always looking for exact particular truths, but they miss out a lot on these universal truths, these patterns that are always around us. And I think maybe this rule is telling us to forget about all those little things and look only for the patterns that overarch everything around you. That way, instead of getting stuck in the lower intellectual mind, you rise to the higher mind, and maybe higher if we're lucky.
Hi, Christopher.
Welcome, Chris.
I also wanted to add that it's very important to remember that we are trying to study the truth in nature and not the particular teachings, because while we remember that we are really studying nature in the broad sense of the word, there is no conflict between different approaches, different books, different teachers. If it helps you, then it's wonderful. I know what helps me, but we are going the same general direction to know the truth that is in nature. And if we forget about it, then there is, competition and comparison and quarrel between my teaching and that teaching and this teaching. It's like the boats that are trying to achieve the other shore of the other bank of the river. There is no point in competing whose boat is better, because like the only goal is to get to the other bank. The color of the boat and the shape of the boat, they don't matter.
No, it's interesting. It says the mind must remain blunt to all but the universal truths. So, yeah, it seems to stress that you be most perceptive, particularly to the universal truths, and you kind of be wary of the others. I don't know. You see what I mean? That's interesting. So,
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, it asks you to keep your mind blunt to all the other truths except the universal.
Yeah, kind of like maybe it's warning us that there's danger of being distracted by all these other things.
Yeah, or is it take all the other stuff with a pinch of salt, or what does it mean? Because not all truths are universal. There are things that are particular to your situation or upbringing or whatever, and they are still relevant. But what do you mean, by being asked to keep your mind blunt to that kind of thing?
Maybe it's also about the truth in nature specifically. So it's not about social, like conventional rules or habits or customs. It's the universal truth of nature that we should focus on. Maybe that's the idea.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Hello. How's everyone? Am I late or did you just start?
We just started pretty much.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is our first rule that we're reading.
Maybe I can also share what I think about rule number 9. I think that because in theosophy we speak about the different layers of religion. Like on the outermost layer, there's the level of rituals. That's why we say that on this level we won't agree, because the Christians have their own rituals, the Muslims have their own rituals, the Hindus have their own rituals, etc. And then the second level would be the level of the dogmas. So again, we won't be able to agree on these things because Hindus would have their own dogmas, Christians would have their own dogmas. So Christians would probably say that Christ is the only way to salvation, while Hindus will have another belief system, another thought, or another concept. And then, but the third layer is the level of the universal truths. So at this level, for example, we speak about For example, the golden rule. So it's present in all of the religions, regardless of which faith you follow. So if we stick to that, then we're following the doctrine of the heart. We're following the core essence of all the religions. But if we focus on the outer periphery, then we're focusing on the doctrine of the eye. We're only doing things just for the sake of doing things. It's like what they mentioned, like a Sunday Christian. They go to church on Sunday, but they don't really understand what they're there for. So they're just going through the motion. They're not really understanding it. They're not really studying the universal truths in nature.
Agree.
Yeah, I agree. And I could also see how that could lead to selfishness, which is the cause of black magic pretty easily. Especially when these people who are just going through the motions really believe they already understand how and why everything is the way it is. But they're very deeply misled. Was there anything else on Rule 9 before we go to the next?
We can go to the next.
All right. Did anyone want to read this one?
You want to read? Oh, okay, I can read. Okay. No animal food or whatever kind, nothing that has life in it should be taken by the disciple. No wine, no spirits or opium should be used, for these are like the lamine, evil spirits, who fasten upon the unwary, they devour the understanding. And wine and spirits are supposed to contain and preserve the bad magnetism of all the men who act in their fabrication. The meat of each animal to preserve the psychic characteristics of its kind. Yeah, especially nowadays that we have all these industries of meat and this holocaustum going on with these poor animals that are suffering so much. I think that eating meat nowadays is, I mean, we were discussing about this the other day. I can't understand how people don't realize that they just go to the supermarket and they pick up that from the fridge, those packages from the fridge, and without thinking now what is beyond that. And this is something I really don't understand of our society. I mean, okay, of course, always more people are becoming aware, but it's a kind of shame.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know, I think back to when I still ate meat myself, and I think it's just so easy to compartmentalize these things and not see it as some animal in a slaughterhouse who lived a tiny little life in a cage, essentially being tortured so I could have a moderately nice meal. I think it's just compartmentalized and we don't see that as real.
And also this evil spirit, they want more food because they like this food, they need this food. So they keep asking for more and more and more. So it's also on the level of desire, I think, exists. And it's very interesting that they devour the understanding. That's what happens. So they block the like spiritual or mystical capacity of seeing. And I did not remember this particular, that wine and spirits are supposed to preserve the bad magnetism of all the men who helped in their fabrication. Very interesting. And of course, these days it can be many people, right? Because some make, some transport, some maybe fill the bottles. I don't know how it's produced, but it can be many people. Very unpleasant.
Yeah. Hi, Fatima. Hi, Marike.
Hi, but I
Hi.
can't today talk. Hey,
Hello,
I can't
everybody.
today.
Hi, nice to see you, Patty. Oh, beautiful.
I know where you are.
Yeah.
Any more reflections on this rule 10? This one's pretty straightforward, I think. All right, 11, if anyone wanted to read.
I can read 11.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay. Meditation, abstinence, and all the observation of moral duties, gentle thoughts, good deeds, and kind words, as goodwill to all, and entire oblivion of self, are the most efficacious means of obtaining knowledge and preparing for the reception of high wisdom.
There's kind of a lot in this one, a lot of different things that help us obtain knowledge, prepare for wisdom.
Yes, even the
Absent-
first one, even the first word contains like a notion. What kind of meditation, right? What is
true.
meant here? Or maybe it's like a deep reflection on the important teachings. It's also a kind of meditation.
Yeah, maybe also I think about dhyana and vairagya, the two paramitas that are vairagya is the abstinence from desires and but no, is detached from desires, because we can't I mean, we have to deal with that in a way. So it's to recognize the desire and to discern, again, the discernment, what is the greater good, and follow that.
I think when I first read this, I was a little confused as to abstinence and all. Maybe I'm a little too literal, but that seems like you're not supposed to do anything, right? I mean, you abstain from everything. But maybe that's what it's saying. Wisdom has nothing to do with what we physically do at all. And it's about transcending this world we think is real, but is illusory.
It makes me remember some lines from Dhammapada where it says something like, reservedness in thought is good, reservedness in word is good, reservedness in action is good, reservedness in everything is good. There may be a different translation, but something like that also in Dhammapada. It reminds me.
Yeah.
It's good to know what the most useful ways of obtaining knowledge and wisdom are. It may be good to know what isn't, because if it's not on this list, maybe it's not the most useful thing. Like listening to lectures isn't on this list. We do that a lot on the TS, but maybe that doesn't lead to wisdom.
On the other hand, if we didn't listen to wisdoms, how would we come across this list?
True. True. Is there anything else on number 11?
You want to say something?
I think this.
Yeah, say. I think this.
Oh, sorry.
Can you please go to the previous slide, Seth? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
It doesn't advocate that you stay in these states all the time. This is just to prepare yourself for the most efficient and effective way of learning. I mean, of course, we can't be in these states all the time. It's impossible. And it talks about bringing yourself into a state where you are most receptive to understanding, higher knowledge. So yeah, it's not like a constant state of a constant meditative state or a constant state of abstinence. That's impractical. Yeah, I just want to comment on that because people take these things too literally, and it seems daunting on the face of it.
Just curiosity, do you think that applies to all the other ones too? Like we shouldn't always think gentle thoughts or do good deeds and kind words.
Yeah, because sometimes you need to discipline, people or something. I don't know. There's degrees of gentleness, so you can't be perfectly kind and well. If you are enlightened, maybe you can. But I'm just saying, for in our day to day, it's not possible. At least I don't think it's possible for me. So yeah, I think you focus on these things when you need to be in these states of maybe learning or meditation or reaching for something higher, but you don't have to pressurize yourself to your detriment, going for these kinds of mental states. Does anyone disagree?
Maybe you have to learn how to deal with this. Okay, abstinence, maybe is a bit strong as because
A word.
yeah, but gentle thoughts is an exercise to train yourself to keep your mind on good thoughts or good deeds.
Good deeds, of course. I don't think anyone can argue against good deeds, but you can't always be kind with your words. Can you?
Yeah.
Can you always be kind with your words?
Yeah.
Always.
You could.
You.
Okay, not me.
I don't know. Well, Fatima and I will know from our recent meetings at work how difficult this is. No, Fatima? With
I
our
think we were very. I think we were very kind.
Yeah, we try to be, but it's not
They
always.
didn't got the unkind version. No, but truly, I think there is even. I mean, I get this abstinence in all on this kind of going through the day and all of these things. Not getting yourself catch into, for example, this meeting with these people are not doing the promise work, no, and they are trying to drive us crazy, no.
Yeah.
But then one doesn't get into that, no. I mean, even in that, one can really like get angry or frustrated, or you can just kind of accept the situation, understand the trick they try to play, and just keep yourself firm and in your position. But still, I think as far as one doesn't align to that situation, doesn't get angry or frustrated, no? For example, and like this in other situations of the day. I don't think one can meditate, or as Elena was saying, me, I cannot keep a meditation state. Everything I am. I don't even know what is a real meditation state. But I think there is this abstinence maybe can be starting by this detachment, no? Not letting one inner kind of strength or inner kind of integrity or peace get involved in all of the deeds happening, no?
No, abstinence, I think, specifically pertains to abstinence from desire, pleasure or overstimulation. Yeah, but I still think, okay, you can. Where is the part? You can internally be gentle with your thoughts, but sometimes you cannot. For example, let's say in our meeting, they are trying to trick us, or they are trying to,
Yeah, but the point is that
you have to present yourself in a way. Maybe you can internally be stable, but you have to sometimes act in a certain way to.
yeah, but it doesn't mean not to be kind. It just means to be determined. Now, to be, I mean, when you're working, you have to be on a certain point, and you have to be determined. No, you have to be,
Firm, maybe?
firm. Yeah, firm.
Yeah, strict.
But the point is that you have to keep the goodwill. This is something that we can't do. The good intention.
No, I'm saying that
Ah.
internally you be gentle. I just feel like you have to present a different face sometimes.
It depends. Yeah, because we are on this plane, and we have to deal with all kinds of people, and
Yeah,
but
for example,
being
if you are
firm-
internally undergoing a turmoil, you still need to present a calm face in your day to day, right? Otherwise, if you keep projecting what you feel inside, you can't really
no,
function.
of course.
Same thing. If you maintain an internal, tranquility and gentleness of thought, but sometimes you have to present not harsh, let's say a firm, maybe not wholly pleasant, face to other people to get the right reaction, or get the right thing done.
Yeah,
No?
and that does all make sense, kind of like adaptability. Maybe
It's
inspired by Booty, and as Booty comes down, it's easier for us to be adaptable while underneath all of that, maintaining this list of good qualities, I suppose.
Maybe I can also share my thoughts. Yeah, I agree. The ones described in this rule are a bit ideal, like meditation, abstinence, and all things. Like what you mentioned, you need to transcend actually all the desires to achieve the abstinence in all things, and the observation of moral duties, the gentle thoughts, deeds, and kind words. They're kind of ideal, but I guess I was just thinking that um Madame Blavatsky also pointed out that these were the rules of discipleship. So, meaning these are the rules for hastened attainment. And she also mentioned that anybody can be a theosophist because all you need is like, you just have to have a love for humanity and average intellectual perception. But to be an occultist means um, that you have access to esoteric knowledge, that you have the power she mentions to create changes using your thoughts alone. So I think that this rule, it's giving us an ideal that we should strive for. It's going to be very difficult, but if we want to pursue the path of occultism, it's something that we have to aspire for. It might be difficult, but like Elena says, the ancient wisdom does tell us like how we can achieve it if we want to, but it's not going to be easy. And if we try to aspire to it, then we can be eligible to obtain the higher wisdom or the higher knowledge. But if we don't want to, if we just want to have a regular path, that's also okay. But this is the ideal. If we want to become like real occultists, like with the power to influence things from the inner side of life, then these things we have to aspire for, like meditation, abstinence in all things, gentle thoughts, and good deeds. Just like what we mentioned before, if you're like a disciple of the master and you have access to their powers, if you have a negative thought, it can manifest instantaneously. So if you are aspiring to enter that path, you have to slowly purify your thoughts and your deeds. Otherwise, you will become a black magician because you were not able to control your thought and just thought of hurting somebody else. And because you're a disciple, you have certain abilities that can actually manifest immediately. So I think that's just my thoughts on this, that it's the ideal state that we should aspire for if we want to enter the path of discipleship. And Madame Blavatsky mentions that there is a path, it's steep and thorny. She advises us to try. If we fail, it will generate good karma for us to succeed in a future life. But at least we should try. It won't be easy, but the trying will make it easier for a future life.
I wanted to say almost the same as Chris said, and also to add that yes, it's like a guideline and principles to follow, but there are degrees. It's not black and white, right? So we are not accepted disciples of a guru. For them, it is a requirement. For us, it's more like a guideline to follow. As much as we can, it will be very good for us.
Yeah, that was well said, both of you. Any more comments on this number 11? Right. And Chris, did you still want to read this next one?
Sure. Number 12, it is only by virtue of a strict observance of the foregoing rules that a Lanu can hope to acquire in good time the siddhis of the Arhats, the growth which makes him become gradually one with the universal all. These 12 extracts are taken from among some 73 rules. To enumerate should be useless as they would be meaningless in Europe. But even these few are enough to show the immensity of the difficulties which beset the path of the would-be Upasaka who has been born and bred in Western lands.
This is kind of what you and Scott were both saying before we move to this slide.
Still would be very interesting to learn the other 61.
It's interesting that to me that the growth of these powers, cities, make that individual become gradually one with the universal law. Just these powers in and of themselves somehow make someone become one with what is God, or the underlying oneness. And I wonder if that's because it helps them see reality more realistically and in such a way that it actually is, and just by that natural growth, you become more in tune with that. But I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that. And maybe because it's also the higher powers are supposed to be connected to the Buddhic level or to the soul level. So maybe if you're connected to that, you're closer to the universal all as compared to someone who's just on the physical plane or just on the astral or on the mental plane. So maybe those higher powers signify that your consciousness is moving to a higher level of consciousness.
Yeah, but I think, okay, the cities are a natural consequence. They shouldn't be a goal, no? We shouldn't think about it. I think I believe.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe
I
the only,
agree.
sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yes.
Oh, I just wanted to say maybe the only situation when we need to think about them if they try to manifest, if they start to manifest themselves, and then we are faced with a situation when we have to think about them. Other than that, they are just natural consequences of spiritual growth.
Yeah.
I am reminded of that story of Leadbeater going into the cave to develop his cities essentially. He came out of a cave clairvoyant after, I don't know, a month or two he was in there. And what we're talking about reminds me of that. But I think that you're right. His motivation wasn't to get those powers. His motivation was to help the world, and to do that, he apparently needed those powers. I don't know. It seems tied to motivation.
But I thought it was not in a cave. It was here in the river bungalow. No,
Oh,
he
was
was
it?
a few days in the river bungalow, and then he came out with the CDs.
Yes, 40 days.
Under the dome?
Yeah,
Fatima is going to stay in the river bungalow.
in the upper part. So careful.
I'll
Pretty
let
cool
you
that
know
it's right there.
how I deal with the ghosts, my friends. Anyway, I just think that it's true that it's a very subtle thing, no? Because then it's also about the intention and where one is setting the intention or the aspiration. Then it comes some people who have more the devotional part. We were with Elena recently. We were in Tirunvaramalai, in the place in India where you had Ramana Maharshi, Arunachala, and we had the opportunity to meditate with a lady, and we talked a little with her. She was really nice, and we were talking about the objectives of the Theosophical Society, or the pillars of study, meditation, and service. And she was like super in communion with this. And she was saying that the only thing she adds to that was the devotion. No? And it's funny because she was saying that you sit to meditate with high intention or no intention. No, like you don't want to sit to obtain something specific. No, so I think it's quite similar. We could make a parallelism with this thing of obtaining the cities or not. It's funny because the way where the cities come is the way one wants to work towards. It's about purification and dharma, and do your deeds, and so the path to obtain is something you want to be towards. At the same time, that intention cannot be to obtain that, no, because then it becomes all dark, selfish, centered on your individuality, not in the idea of the oneness. So I think that click, no, of the intention, but it's funny because the path, on a sense, is the same, no? You will naturally follow the purification.
Were there any more thoughts on this number 12? All right, and then these aren't rules, these lettered ones. They're I think there were commentaries on all of these rules that she listed out. I don't know if anyone wanted to read these two. I can read it if not.
Okay, Harry can read.
Chelaship has nothing whatsoever to do with the means of subsistence, or anything of the kind. For a man can isolate his mind entirely from his body and its surroundings. Chelaship is a state of mind rather than a life according to hard and fact rules on the physical plane.
You can read.
Oh,
Yeah.
B. This applies especially to the earlier probationary period, while the rules given last pertain properly to a later stage, that of actual occult training and the development of occult powers and insight. These rules indicate, however, the mode of life which ought to be followed by all aspirants so far as practicable, since it is the most helpful to them in their aspirations. I'm not sure what the meaning of the word subsistence is. You have any idea, Vignesh?
So, where is it?
Chelaship has nothing whatever to do with the means of.
What you need to live, basically.
The reality of
No.
Subsistence is like,
yeah.
no, yeah.
Says it's
Subsistence, what you need to live, like food.
yeah. Yeah, Vignesh is right. It
Daily
typically means food, that kind of thing, but it can also mean, I'll read here, the action or fact of maintaining or supporting oneself at a minimum level. So it could be applied to any situation, but it's what you need to keep that part of you alive.
Well, basically circumstances and environment, right?
Yeah.
The bare minimum that is needed to survive.
Yeah, your day-to-day stuff that you need.
Yeah, and I think maybe A is saying that fellowship doesn't really matter about your, like Sval was saying, your circumstances. What really matters is the way that you conduct yourself in whatever situation you may be in. I think it's saying Acela can be anyone in any situation in any point in time.
I think Madam Blavatsky is just reminding us because she gave us so many rules. So she's reminding us that discipleship is not about outwardly following the rules, like what we mentioned earlier, just going through the motions of following the rules, but it's internally a state of mind. So just like what Harry, Elena, and Vignesh mentioned earlier. So for example, you're vegetarian because you don't want to harm others. It's not because it's a lifestyle, it's not because it's cool, it's not something that's outward. It's not just going through the motions. You really know what you're aspiring for, and the rules, they're not just, you're not just going through the motions to follow these rules. So for example, I'm reminded, like in Christianity there are rules, like there are certain followings, like in the story of the Christ, he helped somebody during the Sabbath day, and the people were like asking, why did he do that? That was breaking the law. But he says that the law was there to serve the people, not the other way around. So that's also, I think, what A and B is trying to tell us, that the rules, they're there to help us establish a certain state of mind, a certain level of consciousness. It's not just going through the motions. We really need to understand why we're doing it, especially during the probationary period, because in the probationary period, we have to follow the yama niyama, but we're not supposed to be automatons, that we're just doing things mechanically. We're doing things because we have an ideal that we have to follow, and we're using these rules in order to help achieve this ideal. But the rules themselves, they're only tools. If they can help us achieve the ideal, then we follow them. If there are more appropriate tools, we can probably adopt more appropriate tools. If we see other rules that can help us achieve the same state of inner awareness, of fellowship or of discipleship. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. That was well said. Any other thoughts? All right. Next set of three, if anyone wanted to read.
Vignesh.
It should never be forgotten that occultism is concerned with the inner man, who must be strengthened and freed from the dominion of the physical body and its surroundings, which must become his servants. Hence, the first and chief necessity of chelaship is a spirit of absolute unselfishness and devotion to the truth. Then follows self-knowledge and self-mastery. There are all sorry. They are all important. They are all important, while outward observance of fixed rules of life is a matter of secondary moment.
And this letter D reminds me of Chris. I think you mentioned sometimes Christians just go to church as a motion. And I don't know, I grew up with a lot of them, and when I look at their motivation, what my motivation used to be, it was mostly selfishness and no actual devotion to truth. You know, because there's this idea that if you don't believe in a certain thing, you'll spend the rest of eternity being tortured. So you cling to this thing that deep down, I think all of them realize probably isn't true, but for selfish reasons. And so we kind of flip that on its head and become absolutely unselfish and devoted to truth. Uh, we leave that situation and we go somewhere else. I don't know if that makes sense. But I do think it's interesting that that is the first thing it asks us to do, to be absolutely unselfish and devoted to truth. And then the rest follows that. I don't know, it seems hopeful that inherent within the universe is truth. And then if we try to find it, we'll get there.
I think it's like the hierarchy of importance. The most important is the innermost, and the innermost is motivation and also thoughts and feelings. And then the more external things, they are secondary. They matter, they have their significance, but they are less important compared to the central, like core parameters, so to say.
Yeah, I think maybe that could be scary for a lot of people, to be devoted to truth if they don't have that deep feeling within them that truth really does exist out there. I don't know if I can't see inside other people, so I don't know how they operate, but I feel a lot of people in this materialistic world that we live in probably feel there is no truth underlying everything. And that if they try to see things as they actually are, they'll be cast into a void of emptiness where they just see how empty everything is. So I don't know practically how to help people get past that and be devoted to truth for its own sake. How to convince them that there's something underlying everything around us. If they haven't started to see it already.
Yes, it seems it must somehow wake up inside a little bit to start moving and become aware inside the person.
Well, they must want to be devoted to the truth because it's also painful to be devoted to the truth, right? Sometimes we're attached to certain thoughts and certain beliefs. And if we find out that these beliefs are actually wrong, it can also be quite painful. So I guess if people are not ready for that, could be a reason why they're not also devoted to truth. Maybe we just have to be accepting and supportive of them, and as well with ourselves as well. That we don't know everything, we don't know the truth. We are trying to figure it out, and sometimes it can be a painful process of finding what the truth is. So
Yeah, and maybe a part of that is trying not to point out to people who are maybe on that normal path, which maybe all of us are, I don't know. That normal path of, going around the mountain slowly forever. Maybe pointing out truth to them and destroying their worldview is more hurtful than helpful. Because I don't know, I feel we can look at some of the people around us and from our point of view, we can see things that just aren't true, objectively, but pointing that out to them may not be helpful. Are there any other thoughts on these three? All right, 20 and 21, did anyone want to read? I could if not. All right.
I can
20.
read.
Okay, yeah, please.
All Western and especially English education is instinct with the principle of emulation and strife. Each boy is urged to learn more quickly, to outstrip his companions, and to surpass them in every possible way. 21. With such ideas educated into him from his childhood, with such ideas educated into him from his childhood, how can a Western bring himself to feel towards his co-students as the fingers on one hand?
This 21, I think, is referring to a previous quote from the same book where I think one of the rules says that the students should feel for each other as the fingers in one hand, where if one thing makes one student happy, it should make all the others happy. If one upsets one student, it should upset all the others.
Yeah, promoting competition is really a bad thing to do because then it gets projected on everything in life. One family against another, one company against another, one country against another. So that's certainly something we don't need to help because we, I think, have too much of it already.
Not that I disagree with these points, but has there been a practical solution or alternative to competition? I mean, we have Montessori systems of education and stuff, but they only go up to a point. But when it comes to college admissions, or, stuff like that, it's always determined by competition. Is it true in the West as well? Because it's true here and in
Yeah.
Eastern
Only a certain
Asia.
amount of spots. It's competition, yeah.
So, has there ever been a successful alternative in practice?
I think we're speaking about the rule and exceptions from the rule. Where there is rule, there must be exceptions. And in happier times, I think they will switch places. The rule will become exception, exception will become the rule. And the exception, as I understand, as my supposition is by people work together because we have common project, so to say. It can be our country, it can be our city, it can be our planet, our evolution, civilization, whatever. But it's our common project where we work together. So we all help as we can. Freely.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe if one day we I'm sorry, was someone going to say something?
Regarding Vignesh's question, yeah, I agree. It's still a highly competitive world, but I think there's movement going the other way because I remember like 10 years ago when I joined the corporate world, competition was very high. So, for example, everybody on the same career level in my previous company were stacked up against each other, no matter what the geolocation. So, you could be in India, you could be in the US, you could be in the Philippines. if you have the same career level, you're up against each other, and the person who comes up on top will have the highest performance bonus, the highest appraisal, etc. But I think to a certain extent, there's a movement on the opposite end. I think people are beginning to understand that it's not a healthy environment if it's too competitive. So there are changes, there are movements. So they're now saying that you should just compare yourself with your previous self. So for example, right now, instead of comparing yourself with everyone all over the world with the same career level, they're just asking you to like set goals, like try to assess where you are right now and then where you want to be, and then your performance will be determined on the comparison between where you are now and where you want to be. It's still a long way to go, but I think there's headway along this way. This is not something unique to Madame Blavatsky. In the Problems of Humanity, other esoteric writers also tell us the same problem. In Problems of Humanity, DK also mentioned that the reason that wars exist is because of the educational system, because we're teaching young people from the start of at an early age that only a certain number of people can be happy. And so they have to strive to be on the upper quartile. If they're not there, then they're losers, or they cannot achieve success if they're anywhere below this upper quartile. So this has to change. I agree that it's still a long way to go, but I'm seeing some headwinds that there's a bit of a change in the world, and it's becoming less competitive, but it might still probably take a very long time um before a competition actually not really dies down, but just really simmers down a little bit compared to what it was before.
Yeah, I've seen that same strategy where I work too, where they ask you to set goals for yourself and see how you did. And I do think behind the scenes there's some competition going on, like your manager is racking and stacking his employees, but I think it's a lot better that way than having us fight each other to get raises. Were there any other thoughts on these two rules? We finished I'm sorry, these aren't rules, these are actual quotes from the book. We finished in this meeting all those rules that we've been working on for a couple of sessions. We're pretty close to the end time, so I was thinking it might make sense to end on these two. All right, as soon as I can remember how to get to the last slide, I think we'll do our final meditation. All right, so 2 minutes of silence to close out the meeting.